Happy Veterans Day, WBSE. I decided at the very last minute this evening to make a video review for y'all that I'll be posting today on an unusual Friday. And I'm doing that specifically because it's Veterans Day and I wanted to be able to address you on that. My wife is a veteran, although I'm not. Several of my family are. I know that there are thousands of you that are and have family members that are. And I think it's extremely important that we remember all those people and that we take care of them and that we always show them appreciation. So that being said, I'll get on with a little review here of something I got a recent sample of. This is Michter's Unblended American Whiskey. And it's a long explanation of exactly what this is and how it's made and the processes they go through. It's not a bourbon. It's a whiskey. And so you can read up on it yourself because I'm not going to take the time for everyone to have to sit through it to go through everything. And I would have to stop and read it all again anyway because it's a little complicated about everything that they do. And of course, they're not telling you all of it. So starting off with a little bit of color here, this is a really deep, dark amber. I think I got it too high for you there. You can see a nice color in it. A little bit of an orange cast to it, but it's quite amber. On the nose, it starts off with a brown sugar and vanilla and some oak. There's some sort of fruit in there. It's not cherries or anything like that. More of a fig. Actually, the combination of the brown sugar and the fig and the vanilla all kind of comes together to remind me a bit of the flavor of a Fig Newton. Not the cheap kind, the good ones. There's some gentle spice in it. In addition to the brown sugar, there's a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg in there with the wood. It's pretty dense and rich in the nose. But no one part of it is overwhelming. It's pretty balanced. Very nice. Very nice. The palate is very interesting. The palate is wood forward, which is pretty unusual, really. The very first tastes that I got were wood and then into the spices. For my palate, that's backwards because typically I get the wood and the spices at the end of the palate. Here it was up at the front. As the wood and the spice begin to dissipate a little bit as you get used to them in the palate, you start to get kind of a leather note, like rich saddle leather, perhaps a little bit of tobacco or tar, and a bit of a pepper note. Towards the end of the palate, I also get a sweeter fruit note. As opposed to the fig that I had in the nose, towards the end of the palate, after the leather note has settled a bit, that's when I start getting a cherry, like you would get a lot out of a bourbon. And the sweetness starts coming back towards the end. So you start with spice, you end with sweet, and the fruit hits at the end. It's very, very backwards from what I'm used to. The finish didn't hit me as being extremely long. Let me hit this again. Yeah, at the very end, you get a hit when you swallow. You get finally a hit of a nice warm burn in the back of your throat. The leather and tobacco and a little bit of the spice carry through into the finish. It's longer than I first realized. I was probably not paying attention to the finish at that time because I was busy describing the palate. But it is sticking with me. The palate is a little bit dry. That leathery note really carries through. Maybe a little bit of a caramel with that leather. That may have been where the sweetness came through right after the leather in the palate. Yeah, it is a fairly long, medium to long finish. So, starts with the wood in the nose, and you get that fig or fig Newton combined flavor in the nose. Then you go into the palate, and it again has kind of a reverse palate where I got the wood and the spice up front, then it turned fruity and sweet. All mixed in there with the leather and a bit of tobacco or tar, which are a little bit difficult for me to distinguish from one another, and a pepper note. The pepper, a little bit of the spice, some of the wood, a bit of caramel, and the leather all go into the finish. All in all, I think it's a very interesting whiskey. I do not own a bottle of this. As I said, I got it in a sample very recently. I will say that it is on my list to buy now. I would rate this very, very good. On our true 100-point scale, where 50 is a drinkable whiskey and 80 to 90 is an excellent whiskey, I would give this, for no other reason than it is so interesting and it is so different, and it doesn't fit into any of the categories of American whiskey that you normally taste, and combine that with the quality of it. I would give this an 87. I think this realistically is one of the better non-bourbon, non-rye American whiskeys that I've had. I'm hard-pressed at the moment to think of another one that will top it in its category. So there you have it, 87. That is very close to a must-have, which is above 90. I think you should at least give this a shot and see if you can find it at a good whiskey bar. And I can't remember the exact price. I think this runs somewhere 45 to 50 bucks. It's not exceptionally expensive. It might be a little more than that. I can't remember because I haven't bought it. I've only seen it sitting on a shelf. But I highly rate it. I recommend it. And once again, happy Veterans Day to all you veterans and their families out there. Have a good evening. No drama tonight.